Welcome back to the second video for data manipulation basics. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to keep going on the last one or not because I forgot where my stopping point was. Again, sorry about that. But it was at mutate, so I am in the right place. So I'll pat myself on the back for that. Now we're going to work on creating new columns, changing the columns, selecting the columns, those types of things. So these are verbs that operate on columns. Mutate is a function that we will use a fair bit that allows you to create and or modify columns. So this is going to be very helpful in our creation of grades. This, in a sense, is the formula. This is as close to what you'll get for the formula in the Excel type formula in R. And so, again, to remind ourselves, the original data set that we're working with is up in the top right. So it's a small 5x3 data set that has X, Y, and C in it. And here's my command. Again, you can follow along by typing everything in R once you create the data set and call it TB. Okay? Everything should work as suggested, hopefully. Okay, but anyway, I'm taking my tibble, my data set up in the right. I'm piping it into the mutate call. Again, the pipe takes whatever is to the left of that pipe, which here it's just TB, and puts it in the first argument to the right, to the function to the right of the pipe, which is mutate, and the first argument is data. It seems really weird that you would do this. Why not just write it like that? But I'll show you in just a second why it is going to be helpful, why it's not so crazy. But you can think it's crazy for now. So mutate that tibble, and I want to create, or I'm going to do something. It says mutate z is equal to x plus y. And so as you might expect, what it does is it keeps the original data set, tacks on a new column called z, and it is the sum of the two columns, x plus y. Okay? Which again is very much like an Excel formula in a sense. So it's the closest that we'll get to an Excel formula. So z is equal to x plus y. Here we go. You can do multiple things, so you can create multiple columns. It doesn't have to be one at a time, so Z and then W. It does both of them. Here's another sort of interesting quirk about mutate. It's a feature, not really a quirk. Okay, mutate Z is equal to x plus y, and then I use that. It hasn't been defined before, so it's not part of TB, but I define z as x plus y, and then I say z2 is equal to z squared. And so the question is, will that error? And the answer is no. You can define and then use that argument or that column in the same place that you can use it in the same place you defined it, which is interesting, and I think a pretty cool feature. Okay, and so in that way, it rolls the computations over. Now, what if I say y is equal to x plus y? Now, this is different because before I was always using z or w, which didn't exist in the data set before, but y does. And so what happens here is that it redefines y, which can be very helpful, but is also dangerous. Okay? Helpful, but also dangerous. Because now, of course, I've lost the original y. I don't know what that is, and I could get it back if I remember that I just did x plus y, and so if I just subtract x again, I'll get back to y. But that's probably more thinking than we want, or more backtracking than we need. So anyway, a little more dangerous is redefining columns that you have, but you may not want to add new columns to your data. Okay, does this make sense? Hopefully, this is where I would ask, does this make sense in class? But I'll have to try to not ask too many questions. But it is my nature, so bear with me. So it replaces variables as well. Now, there are many mutate variants. Okay. Now, what I mean by that, before we get to select, is when we come over here and you start typing mutate, okay, there are mutate variants and they look like this. Okay. The variants, just like in ggplot, all are going to use underscores and mutate. And so we have mutate underscore all, at, each, and if. Now, these are special mutates that only work some of the time or work based on a special thing that you give it. So it might only want to mutate at certain rows or certain columns. Okay. Now, not to get too far in the weeds, but if you look at, whenever I go over each of them here, you'll notice in about the third line down, mutate all and mutate at, they are both what's called superseded. There's a picture that's missing there that they have that this won't render, but it says these are superseded, these are deprecated. Mutate each is deprecated, mutate if is superseded. Okay, so the tidyverse is in essence, a living, breathing organism, which is a set of, well, here's a set of functions. So it's living and breathing, which means the people who make it are constantly rethinking about how they can do things better. And so these mutate, at, all, if functions exist still and can be used, hence why they're here. But they're the tidyverse makers, creators, so on and so forth. They have found better ways to do this. And so you right now just need to worry about mutate. We'll slowly work into the waters of special mutate calls. Okay. But just to let you know, when you look at functions, you might see superseded, deprecated, so on and so forth. They're varying levels. Superseded is they found a better way to do it, but it still exists. Deprecated, you can't use it. And then there's extinct, there's varying levels. Sometimes they're questioning whether or not the function is worth it, so on and so forth. Okay, don't think too much about it, but I just want to let you know that it is, it's there, and these change over time. So these were in style maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, but now they're superseded by something better. Okay, but for the moment, just worry about mutate. Sorry for going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Now, that was mutate, changing rows, or making a new column, or changing other columns by applying operations to one or more columns to sort of smash them together. You're mutating, you're making something new. Select allows you, well, select or deselect certain columns. Okay, so if I take the tibble up at the top right and I select just X and Y, it gives me X and Y without C. So you can do it by name, you can do it by position, 1 and 2, as separate arguments or as a vector. So it allows all three of them. Names are preferred because of more readable code. Yeah. So I don't necessarily know what 1 and 2 are, but X and Y, although X and Y aren't really telling you what the variable's about, okay, hopefully the names would be better than X and Y, and selecting by name is more likely to tell you what the heck is going on with your code. Okay, so that was selecting. Deselecting uses the minus, which is like the exclamation point. Okay, so -3 and -3, they give you the same thing. I can do it by name or by position again. Now there are some helper functions here. So TB select one of X or Y. Well, it's like an OR. So one of is sort of like OR, but it's weird. I should have made a sort of better one. One of is a weird OR. The ones that you would use most often, starts with, ends with, and contains, are, well, I think pretty self-explanatory. So starts with is going to select columns that start with that name, whatever you give it. Ends with, and contains just contains. Okay, we'll actually use select in just a second here. Okay, select. Now, with summarize applies a summary function that creates a real valued statistic. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? Well, it means this. Okay, so I pipe in the tibble to summarize, and then I say X bar is going to be the mean of X. Okay, and so it applies a summary function to a real valued statistics. Okay, so basically it's going to take the column X, it's going to take the mean of that column, so the mean of all the numbers, and then give you back the mean. Okay, and so that's what you get. Now it's a tibble 1 by 1, so it's a 1 row, 1 column data frame that just has the number 3 in it, and it's called X bar because I named it X bar. Remember, everything that goes into a dplyr function is a tibble. Everything that comes out is also a tibble. And so that can be really annoying at times. And so we'll find a way to work around that. But that is summarize. There's lots of variants for summarize, and they usually go in conjunction with group by. Okay, and so that's where we're going to end this one, and we're going to start another video talking about group by and how it is related to summarize. And then we'll actually get to the example of how I would calculate some fake-ish grades with these functions that we've just learned.